Well, welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where we are your resource for education, connection, and collaboration to support you on your wellness journey. And I would like to start by thanking our sponsors, Carolyn Skowron and White Sands Premier Travel. These sponsored appearances is what makes Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross possible. Carolyn is a passionate mental health advocate, speaker, and author of the powerful book, Unbreakable. And having faced her own battles with bullying, anxiety, and depression, Carolyn understands the importance of being heard and supported. Her journey of recovery not only led her to rediscover her faith and self-worth, but also inspired her to empower others through her story. Carolyn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey? So your journey through bullying and anxiety, it's deeply impactful. So can you share maybe a little bit about your journey and what that defining moment was that sparked your passion for mental health advocacy?
Yeah, so, it all started when I started getting bullied in third grade. I got a death threat in third grade, and that was the first time that I really started to feel like I wasn't belonging and I felt like I wasn't worthy. So then I struggled a lot with, why don't people like me? What's wrong with me? As I got older and on to middle school, I continued getting bullied and it just kept getting worse and worse. Then when I got into high school, that's when the anxiety and depression were the biggest things of my life. I really struggled a lot with just my self-worth, how I saw myself. I was always super anxious every day. I really just struggled with finding my place in the world and finding my place at that point in my life. So I really did struggle a lot with, anxiety, depression. I struggled a lot with making friends. I struggled a lot with fitting in. So that kind of continued on to later in high school when I found out that I had a learning disability, which is called nonverbal learning disability. Basically, you're highly verbal, but you really struggle with conceptual skills. You struggle with patterns and stuff like that. So, sometimes like parallel parking can be an issue, or just spatial awareness things in general. But I also do struggle with internalization and just kind of the overthinking and the ruminating on and on and on. And with anxiety and depression, it just kind of amplified that. It kind of just made it worse and worse. So I, continued through high school, then went to boarding school for kids with learning disabilities, graduated from high school, went to college, thought it was going to be the best 4 years of my life. It was not. And I almost took my life my freshman year of college. And I'm so grateful that I didn't. My best friend in the entire world called me at the right moment. But then fast forward to the end of college, 2020, I was in a life-threatening car accident where I was lucky to be alive. And I knew that that was kind of my second chance at life and gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I need to use my voice because I've been struggling for so long silently. I don't want other people to feel that. And that's kind of how mental health became my huge passion for life.
Wow. So let's back up. So is the learning disability why you were bullied in second, third grade? I mean, that seems like an awful young age and grade to even start being bullied for anything.
I don't know per se, because at that point we didn't know until my sophomore year of high school. And the reason that I didn't know for so long was because, it really does affect you in school with like working hard. And I had a bunch of tutors for different subjects and kept like working 10 times harder than everyone else. I think socially, maybe I just didn't know it at the time because I didn't really understand what nonverbal learning disability is. I found out that I had that when I was 16. I'm 27 now. So I've had a lot of time to really kind of self-reflect and kind of understand not why I have to, go through this, but just kind of understanding more about who I am and using it as an advantage and using it to a strength, because having a learning disability is actually a strength, not a weakness. And I think it took me a long time to really find that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of strengths in that. I mean, a lot of people like to look at it as disabilities, but a lot of times when people suffer from a certain disability, their other senses or strengths get heightened, and it's actually, can be a strength. That just kind of blows me away. I mean, I remember being picked on and stuff, you know, you get teased, you get picked on and stuff, but death threats in second or third grade, I just, yeah, it's hard to imagine that kind of thing even goes on, but obviously it did, and it made it quite the impact. So writing your book, Unbreakable, it must have been an emotional process because you have been through so much. So what did you learn about yourself while you were creating it?
I think the biggest thing I learned about myself through writing Unbreakable was the fact that, one, I was a better writer than I gave myself credit for in school. And two, you know, it was actually very healing. I learned that by writing my feelings, by writing my emotions, by writing about past traumas that have happened, it was almost like it was a way of letting go. It was a way of saying, this is in the past, this is long gone over with, and we're not going back there. And just kind of writing it and decompressing and moving on with life. I think it was like the healthiest way for me. But more than anything, I just realized that writing was the biggest healthy coping mechanism that I never knew that I really had, but it became that.
Yeah, I know many people talk about journaling and, you know, doing certain things to get it down, but then some of us even, you know, struggle with that. But
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
still
can only
journal
imagine.
too.
Yeah, that had to be very emotional and do it. But the title Unbreakable itself is so powerful. What does that word mean to you personally, and how do you live out that message in your daily life?
You know, Unbreakable to me was more than just a book title. It all started with the fact of I realized after my car accident and I was recovering with my injuries and it was the start of COVID and I was deeply emotional. But I told my family, I was like, wait a second, I'm unbreakable. I was like, that's it. That's the title. But I also understand that unbreakable to me is like saying that nothing's going to break you. Nothing's going to take you down. No matter what you go through in life, you can make it through those hard times. You can make it through those times that you might have thought you'd never make it through, because when you're unbreakable, you know it's going to be okay. And at the end of the day, you're going to get through it. And unbreakable to me is also a community. It's a word of people to support each other and to know that, you know, lift each other up when hard times are happening, but also just understand that we all go through trials and tribulations in our life. We all go through hard times, but it's just about recognizing, hey, this isn't going to break me. This is a hard time. This is a hard part of my life, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like this forever. And I really hope that Unbreakable gives other people that same clarity as well.
Yeah, and I was trying to calculate in my head the time difference, but when you were getting bullied and death threats and all of that, was it through computer and social media, or was it in person?
No.
There's a threshold somewhere there where people started doing the other.
No, I actually was very lucky in the sense that I was not cyberbullied, but it is a huge reason why I am so passionate about, you know, cyberbullying and anti-bullying now is because, you know, I got that at school and then I could come home and, you know, cry about it, but decompress. But nowadays, when kids are getting bullied, they are literally going home and being consumed by it. They don't have any sense of, okay, let's put this away and let's worry about this tomorrow, because, you know, the cyberbullying is 24/7. And that's the real issue. And that's really where I think my whole passion for being an advocate for anti-bullying is the fact that I don't want these kids to experience the same pain that I did. I know how much words can hurt. I know how it can feel when you feel like no one likes you, when you feel like everyone's making fun of you. And so I don't want these kids to have to go through the same thing, which is why I feel like now it's, you know, part of my passion and purpose is to share stories so that I can hopefully amplify my voice, so that if someone is struggling with bullying or struggling with speaking up, you know, they have more of the courage and strength to do so, because they see, oh, wait, she was bullied, but she made it through. So I'll make it through too. And that's really what I hope that I can hopefully provide for people, is showing that you're going to get through this. And I know bullying's hard and people can be so cruel and mean, but at the end of the day, like, your worth and your purpose in life is not from what other people are saying about you. And I think that takes a really long time to learn. It definitely took me a very long time to learn that in my life. And I just really hope that I can help them in any way possible.
Yeah. And I'm glad you weren't cyberbullied, but I mean, that has to take a lot of courage too. Cause yes, you can go home and you can decompress from it, but then you got to return to school the next day.
Yeah. And I
And
think that's the thing too, is with these kids this day and age is, they are constantly being attacked. And it's, they can go to the lunchroom and still be cyberbullied. They could be in a different class and be getting cyberbullied. And it's not right. And there needs to be something more done about the way that these kids are getting treated. And also too, I feel like a lot of the bullies do not have repercussions for their actions. And I think that that is a huge problem. I think that acknowledging who is bullying and who is, making a hard time for someone else, I think it's really important to, make sure that they do have the consequences, regardless if that's being suspended or, whatever it is. I think they just have to take the bullying more seriously, because we're losing kids more and more every single day because of bullying. And a lot of it now is cyberbullying. And it breaks my heart.
it breaks mine too. I mean, because it's a different generation, and people seem to get so brave when they're behind a computer and behind a screen. I mean, it was mean when they were mean enough and in your face, but now they have other ways to do it. And y'all grow up and told to get a tougher skin or just being teased or stuff. But yeah, sometimes it affects people differently.
Yeah,
So
words hurt. And
yeah,
and I think it's so important to choose your words wisely, because you can't take things back. And you might think that you're saying something that's not going to affect someone at all, but then it could be like me, the kid going home, internalizing it, wondering why they're so different, wondering why they don't fit in, wondering why no one likes them. It's just not fair.
right. Yeah. Well, can you describe the process of rediscovering your faith and self-worth? How did this transformation influence your writing?
Yeah, so I think a little before I got in my car accident in 2020, I was really starting to take therapy seriously again. I think a reason why it took me so long to kind of discover how best for me to cope with life and to be living a healthy life is because I wasn't taking therapy seriously. I think that's the biggest misconception with therapy, when people say that it doesn't work, is because they don't take it seriously, which is something I didn't do for years. But my faith has been something that really came alive after that car accident, because I'm a Christian. And for me, I knew that it was God giving me my second chance at life. And I was like, I am not going to take this lightly. I'm going to do everything in my power to help even one person, to help even inspire one kid to go get help, or to help one kid realize that their life is worth living. I realized from that car accident, that was really where my faith kind of reformed, I guess, because I realized I was like, I have a bigger purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did struggle a lot with my faith in college. I struggled a lot with believing in something, but I always tell people, listen, I'm not here to force my beliefs on anyone, but I am going to say what helped me. And for me, it was faith. And if for you, it's finding faith in something or believing in something, then just remember it's about finding faith in something. Because when you have faith, you realize there's a purpose for living. And I really just hope everyone can get there at some point in their life.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to therapy, I would think one of the important things is to have a therapist that actually is listening to you, not prejudging or preconceived notions, or not trying to just throw things at you or fix you. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, if you find a therapist what was that like for you? I mean, were you able to trust them or to open up to them, or was it still difficult?
I had to go through a couple therapists, to be honest. I think it's about finding the right person who you're comfortable with, the person who you feel like you connect with, because at the end of the day, a relationship with your therapist is something that, you have to you have to build that trust, because, you're telling such small parts and big parts and whatever it is of your life to this person that, like, you want to know them a little bit. And I think that the biggest way that I realized why my therapist now is the best ever is because I realized how comfortable I was, and I realized that I didn't need to lie to her. And I think that a lot of my other therapists in the past, I mean, as much as it kills me though, I just would lie about what state I was in. I would lie about like how I was doing. And with my therapist now, it's like, nope, this is how I'm feeling straight up. This is why I'm having this type of bad day or whatever. But I think my therapist now has really helped me become more self-aware. And I don't think I had that from other therapists, because with becoming more self-aware, it kind of does go a little bit with my learning disability. Mm-hmm. But I also just feel like having that connection in therapy and realizing, oh, why did you feel that way? Or like, oh, are you making people feel happy or sad? Like, how are you making other people feel? I think those like reflection and those moments, whether those are in therapy or other, times by yourself, it's like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's reflect on kind of how I'm feeling and how I'm making other people feel. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is how are you making yourself feel, and being honest with yourself. Because if you can't Absolutely. Be honest with yourself, how are you going to be honest with others? And it's kind of like self-care. You can help people all you want, but if you don't take care of yourself, you're not fully there for them. So it's, it always kind of, I believe it always starts with you. But
yeah, no, it does. It really does. It really starts with how you view yourself, how you kind of handle life. Mm-hmm. That all kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. So in what ways do you believe storytelling can be a powerful tool for healing, especially for young people that are facing similar struggles?
Yeah, I think that storytelling is a great thing because it forces you to be vulnerable. I think vulnerability is something that is so overlooked, and it's something that really should be just celebrated, because I think that by being vulnerable, you can build more vulnerable connections and relationships. And through, with everything of myself and my own journey, I just, realized that by being vulnerable, by telling my story, I could actually help someone else. I could help someone else who maybe wouldn't have said something had they not have heard me. Or there have been times as a speaker where kids have come up to me and been like, I just feel heard, I feel seen. And that to me makes everything worth it.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because there's so many people that keep so much inside and it hurts them. Most of the times it makes you sick or keeps you with some kind of ailment, but besides the anxiety and the depression. But yeah, there's so many people struggling. So I'm really glad that we have people like you that are willing to share their story and talk to people, because it is an important issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about storytelling too is it's a freeing thing. I think when you're open about your story, you're open about things that have happened to you, you build this connection with people that you otherwise wouldn't have. And yes, it's scary, because trust me, the first time I was fully vulnerable, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What are people going to think? But then you get to a point where you're like, I don't care what people think. I care about helping one person, and that's all that matters. If I can help one person save one life or just make a difference in someone's life, that's what I want to do. And that's when I feel the most fulfilled, for sure.
Yeah. And you got to be proud, just to see where you've come and what you've accomplished, despite all of that, what Absolutely. You went through, that you got through that. So it's definitely something to be proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I know we're got more to talk about, like the misconceptions of mental health and more. So if you guys will hang with us, we'll be right back. We got to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors. So, Carolyn, what are some of the misconceptions about mental health that you've encountered, and how can we work to change them?
I think the biggest misconception of mental health is that someone has it worse than you, or that, your feelings aren't fully validated. I think the biggest thing with that is focusing on opening those conversations. And by willingness and the, ability to have these conversations, we can kind of form a better understanding of why the stigma is the way it is, and also really kind of understanding that, your feelings are valid no matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter if someone has it worse than you. Your feelings are 100% valid. And I think that another misconception of mental health is that people just don't understand therapy. They don't understand why it works, or they don't think it works. And my analogy for this is that if you go shopping for a pair of shoes, you don't find a pair of shoes that day. Are you going to never wear shoes again? No, you're not.
It's a good analogy. Yeah.
So, and that's the same thing with therapy is like, if you don't find the right one day one, then keep going, because it's a healing process when you can talk to someone openly about what you're going through. Because I always say that when you hold things into yourself, it's like you're a ticking time bomb. It's like you're waiting for that moment to explode, for just something to just put you in a manic episode. And that's kind of what happened with me. And that's why I'm like, you know what? This is why you need to understand why therapy can be a good thing. And I think everyone deserves therapy. I think everyone should have it. I think it's just very effective if you do it in a way where you're fully engaged and you're willing to learn more from it. Because my misconception with therapy was that these worksheets are stupid. What are these? Like, I'm not doing this. Mindfulness? Who does that? Look at a flower? I remember looking at that one and I was like, I'm not doing this. And I just remember looking back now, I'm like, that would have been so helpful to take seriously, because mindfulness is something that takes time to build, but it changes your appreciation for life and it changes your perspective. So I think those were some of the biggest things for me. And I also think that, I didn't have this experience, but I think another misconception for kids is where parents can be like, oh, like, get over it. Like, it's not the big of a deal. I think parents making sure that they are validating their kids, which is something my parents were always really good at. I just didn't talk to them because I just didn't want to like worry them. But they were always like, I understand, like, we're going to do what we can. Like, this isn't going to be like this forever, really validating, rather than being like, oh, well, someone has it worse than you, get over it. Like, your issue isn't that big, like, I just have the most loving family. So like, I can't relate, but it breaks my heart when I see kids talk about their parents not understanding or their parents not being open about it. And that is what kills me, because I want kids to be able to have that open dialogue with their parents, which is something I learned that, oh, wait, like, they're being really loving and supportive, like, and I was never worried that my parents weren't going to validate my feelings. I just didn't want to worry them, because they're just such great people. And I just like didn't want them to have to like deal with it. And so I kept it to myself for the most part, which, again, bad idea. Don't do that. Like, it messes up your own mental health, and it makes you more just like, you push people away, which is something I definitely did too. So I definitely think the biggest thing is that parents need to be more engaged with their kids if their kid is struggling with mental health issues.
Yeah. And I would think there's a fine line between, validating and, I don't know if enabling is the right word, but getting, making it worse, kind of feeding the drama instead of, validating it and trying to help and get support. There's some fine lines. And there may be a lot of parents that maybe don't feel like they're really very equipped, or they're not sure how to help their child. What would you recommend to them?
It all starts with open communication. I think that it's okay to be like to your kids too, I don't know exactly how, you're feeling right now, and I might not be able to understand it fully, but I am here for you. But I also think that telling them that there are resources available, making sure that they know that, therapy is an option. If they're really struggling, there's also, tons of different resources. There's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. There's these things that can be implemented in their life if they need it to get through a day or a certain day. And I think that, for me, I'm just someone who has experienced mental health issues. I'm not like a licensed clinician or anything. So I always just say that if you're just open with your parents and just start that conversation, that's where it's going to be the best. If that doesn't go too well, I think then that's when you can bring in like a third party, and maybe like if you're talking to one parent, maybe talk to both parents, or if your parents are understanding, maybe talk to your guidance counselor at school. Like, how can I help myself?
Right.
I just think that kids need to be advocates for what they need. And I think that is the thing we need to make with the different conception of stigma and all that stuff, and be like, listen, these kids need to know, what do I need to be successful? And they need to be equipped with the resources so that they have those and that it doesn't get to a breaking point.
So in a sense, for a parent to kind of shut off the parent side, because you're not there to try and fix them, but to be an open source to listen and kind of try and see it from their perception, how they're feeling and what's going on.
Yeah.
And not judge them.
Yeah, exactly. The not judgment, the validating of feelings. I always emphasize that because that's the biggest thing. I just remember like when I was going through hard times, and I would, anytime I would tell my mom or dad or sister, they'd be like, I understand, like, you're going through a hard time, but like, this isn't going to be forever. We're going to figure out a way to get through it. I think just having that calm dialogue and being willing to do that. And I think that's going to take both parties, parents and kids, to be like, let's have an open conversation. Because if we can normalize this, then kids everywhere will be like, yeah, I talk to my parents. You talk to your parents. And I really want that to be normalized because, kids deserve to have that relationship with their parents. And, not everyone has amazing parents. So if for you, it's a therapist or someone at school or like a teacher, just someone who is, a different, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's just someone who's not in your family sometimes can be very helpful as well.
Yeah, sometimes it's sounding, kind of a sounding board, because when they're your family, a lot of times, of course, they don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you in pain, and they think they know what you need or how you're feeling, and it's kind of sometimes hard to separate that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that can be the hardest thing too, is, when you see someone you love going through hard times. I mean, my parents and I talk about it now, and it's like it was just so hard for them because they couldn't do anything except be there. And I think that that's the other thing too, is just being there for your family, being there for your people. And if you don't have the right family, then find your family with friends and make your family and find people that will really support you and lift you up and be there for you in the hard times. And that's what life's about, is building those authentic and real relationships.
Yeah, I call it finding your tribe. You're like-minded, your tribe of people.
Yeah.
So how do you encourage others to express their feelings and experiences regarding mental health without the fear of judgment?
I always say, therapy is a great place to start. I think that journaling, I think that writing down your feelings, that can be very helpful as well, at least for me. But if you're not a writer, then find something else that's going to help you really kind of like get your feelings out. And whether that's, talking to like your best friend and telling them what's going on, or you're talking to, your brother or sister, or, neighbor or parent, whoever it is. I think it's just really important to understand that, it's okay to be having these conversations to talk about mental health, because by doing this and by making sure that we're, helping each other more and being there for each other, I think it's all about, just being a good person and being a good human. And if you see someone struggling, it's like, how can I help them, and not in a way of like, oh, like, how can I like, give them like advice, medical advice, but it's just like, sometimes a smile or, or, hey, how are you doing? That can really make a huge of a difference.
Yeah, it's amazing how we always think it has to be so grandiose in gesture, when it can really be the simplest things, like you said, like a smile or or just, asking them how their day is or complimenting them on something. I mean, sometimes that can just make the biggest difference in someone's world too.
Yeah. And I also will say too, like, if you need intensive outpatient therapy, don't be afraid of it. When I was really needing help in college, I had to do intensive outpatient therapy and I was terrified. But I also understood the fact that those were kids that were going through the same things that I was going through. And so it felt nice to know that I was not alone. And I think it's just also important to remember that you're never alone. Everything you're going through is valid, and everything you're going through, you're going to get to the other side. It's just you got to keep pushing and got to keep going.
So your therapy, did you do a lot of one-on-one therapy, or was it more like a group therapy or a combination?
So there was a time where I had my old therapist and she said, I'm going to stop seeing you while you do this. So I went 3 times a week and it was 5:30 to 8:30. It was group therapy. Then once a week you had a psychiatrist meeting, and then you also had a meeting with the therapist. And it was very helpful, because I think that by getting those skills and getting those resources, I mean, it sucks that I had to get to rock bottom to really know that.
Right.
But I think that's the thing. I think people should be, educated with the resources before they get to rock bottom, so that, practicing mindfulness and practicing gratitude and practicing simple things, it can really just help lead your life to a better place so that you're not going down a dark path.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of resources, your platform offers resources and support for those that are facing mental health challenges. Can you share one resource that has been particularly effective in helping others?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great ones. I really do. I always, and I might need to put it on there, but I look up the National Suicide Prevention. It's like the stats of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to look and see what's new with that. But I think that if you're like really struggling, the anti-bullying one that I have on there, I think that's really great. Depending on what you're going through, there are great resources. But I will say, like, I can't just pick one because there are a lot of good ones.
Well, go ahead. You can list off a few of them or tell them kind of what they can expect when they go to your website.
Yeah, well, on my website, if you go to carolynskowron.com, there should be there is a thing that says resources. And with that, I for my nonverbal learning disability, I put one for that, for bullying, for mindfulness, and then anxiety and depression. Yes, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. I think that's my favorite one. That's the one I have listed. And besides that one, I think that NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, is a good one. Or, I might need to put some more. I just, have been thinking about it of like 1 or 2 resources, because I don't know exactly what people want. But
right.
But yeah, there are resources there. And, you can even Google resources for me, for my child, for, whatever it is. And I think just being educated about it is really important. And those resources kind of give you that, and also can give you the ability to get help if you need it. But I also think that if in crisis, the most important thing to understand is that you can call 988 if you are in a crisis. If you are, the National Suicide Hotline is for texting and calling. I've never used it personally, but I have heard that a lot of people have used it and it's been really good and helpful. So, I also want to say that one is an option there as well.
Nice. Many people feel isolated in their struggles. How do you foster a sense of community among individuals dealing with mental health issues?
I think the most important thing, which even says in that question, is to not isolate yourself. I think it's so important when you're feeling really low or just not feeling like you're in a good place in life, to find something that's going to build community, whether or not that's even getting an animal, which I always say my cat is like the best thing ever, because having an animal, it forces you to like be responsible for something else. And, the unconditional love that they give you are so great. I also think that, based on your religious affiliations, whether that's a church group or a synagogue or whatever your religion is, there are always groups that they have. So, to meet other people. And I will also say that, you know, for me, my support system really kind of was more my like family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that as long as you're not isolating yourself fully, that's really the most important thing I'll say, because laying in your bed and watching New Girl crying and hating your life, I did that, didn't really help. All it did was kind of make things drag on longer. So I think the sooner that you're willing to get help, the sooner you can better your life. But it is a decision that comes down to what life you want for yourself. And it's something that has to be a personal choice, because the one thing people didn't tell me when I was really struggling too is you have to want to get better. You have to want to make a difference. And, you know, or even getting in a sport or music or whatever it is, you know, finding something that you're interested in that you can find other people who are like-minded, I think is another great thing to try to build community when you're going through it, because you'd be surprised how many people are actually like willing to be like, hey, like, who are, like, hi, I'm Carolyn, you know, like, and then you can be like, how are you? And it's okay to be honest and be like, not doing too good. I think that's the thing. We need to build that normalcy of how are you feeling? Because if you're feeling bad, like, you shouldn't have to be like, oh, I'm good, how are you? Like, it's just such a surface level conversation that I think can definitely be deepened. And I think by deepening that conversation, we could help more people than we realize.
Yeah, and really wanting the answer when you ask, and not just expecting them to say, "Oh, it's fine."
Yeah,
because we all have a tendency of doing that at times too.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to someone who feels overwhelmed by their mental health challenges and don't know where to start on their journey to healing?
I think the first thing, it's gonna be, you have to say, I want to get better. And when you say I want to get better, that means, and the secret is, buying in. So whether that's buying into therapy or buying into someone who's trying to help you, being able to really kind of engross yourself in it and be like, I'm going to do this to make myself feel better, then, you know, that's important. So like in therapy, for example, when I was given that worksheet, instead of being like, this is so stupid, I should have been like, okay, this might not be exactly what I want to do, but I'm going to try like one or two things off this, and just being open to trying things, trying to hoping. The other thing I will say too is, you know, reach out to a guidance counselor if you're in school. Oh, sorry, my voice is like getting like raspy.
That's okay. I had a sinus infection last week, so I'm right there with you every now and then. It's like, whoa. So, go ahead.
But yeah, like, I really think that, you know, being able to connect with, you know, guidance counselors or principal or whoever it is at your school, if you're in college, find resources for, you know, for mental health at your school. All colleges should have that. You know, if you're not in school, I think, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
But no, I think the biggest thing is really kind of being open to the people that will help you and the help that you can get. And I also think that if you're in a really, really bad place, it's okay to say, I need to go to intensive outpatient therapy because I'm one step from inpatient. And instead of getting there, if I can at least do outpatient therapy, I know I'm putting myself in the right direction. But more than anything, really just find a support network, understand that you're not alone, understand that there are so many resources out there. There are so many people who want to help you, but don't write off therapy, because if you are someone who has tried it and it hasn't worked, I would suggest trying someone else, because again, it's just until you find the right one.
Yeah. And there's so many different types of therapy. I don't know exactly which one you went through, but there's different types, different modalities of therapy. So there's, I believe, different things that work for different people. But you have made a very good point, because I was always one of those people that always like to try to fix and help people and stuff. But
Me too.
You can't help them unless they want help. You know, unless they are, like you said, unless they are ready to be helped, there's really not much you can do. And it breaks my heart, because it's sad, because, you know, you want to, there's no magic wand really to wave, but, you know, you want to help them. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's important for sure. I think also too, just making sure that, you know, you're not pouring from an empty cup yourself. I think that was my biggest problem, is I was always trying to help everyone else and do everything for everyone else, but I was not taking care of myself at all. Like even drinking water, this is like a new good thing that I started to do in the last couple of years. But like just taking care of yourself is really important as well. So like make sure like, you're taking showers or taking baths, or like giving your self time to relax. Going to the gym is another great thing for me that I love to do to help myself. Or even writing music too as well. That's been a huge thing for me as well, continuing with writing, but I also love singing and music. And so that's a really healthy coping mechanism. So maybe it's just about finding the right way for you to cope. And that can take some trial and error, but it's just what makes you happy. And if sports make you happy, then go do that more. Or if you love going to the gym, go to the gym. Or if you love musicals, go be in a musical or play or whatever it is, but really kind of just find something that you love, because that's really when the healing process began for me.
Yeah. And like you said, it takes a lot of work, and you did that self-awareness, the self-reflection.
Yes.
Because if you are one of those people that like try to help, like you say, you're always like helping people, then sometimes you're still doing it with good intentions, but you're also doing it because you're avoiding your own,
right,
and keeping yourself distracted instead of dealing with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always say, don't lie to yourself, be honest with yourself, give yourself grace. That's the most important thing you can do, is understand that your life is so worth it. Your life is so worth living, but you have to learn how to take care of yourself, because that's the only way you're going to live a happy and healthy life. And trust me, it's a lot better living a happy and healthy life than it was before. So yeah. I know that anyone struggling, they can get through it too.
I 100% agree. And it's like, and we're so good at beating ourselves up, and it's like, okay, try celebrating the little wins. I mean, even if you just woke up and got out of bed, then celebrate it. It doesn't matter. Instead of saying that, oh, I didn't get this done, I didn't do that. It's like, we take so much, we don't take enough time to celebrate what we did accomplish.
Yeah. Because we always undermine our success. And I think it's just important to understand that your success is getting up every day. Your success is getting your work done, getting your animals fed and out the door for work or whatever it is. But I really do think that people need to understand that it's okay to not accomplish the big goals all the time, because it's just, that's not sustainable, number one. And two, it's like, have a goal, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if you made it through something big and that like you were struggling to get through it and you made it through, celebrate that, because that's a win, and a win is a win.
Yep. And I love your other point too. Who cares what anyone else thinks?
Yep.
It matters. It's your life. It's your perspective. You're in control of you. So all you should care about is what you think and how you feel about it. And if you don't like it, change it.
No, exactly.
If other people don't like it, they can fall by the wayside. You will find who your tribe is and who you like. And
absolutely, you will find your people when you are the most authentic version of yourself. And I always say, I have friends today that I dreamed of being friends with in high school, but they love me for who I am. And I'm sometimes like, I need you to parallel park. No, I can't do it right now. And they're like, oh, like, okay, that's totally fine. Just people who are like, okay with your little quirks and your, personality and stuff. And people who, they all see my heart. They all tell me that they, and love, like, how loyal I am and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's just because I really care about my people. And, I think everyone deserves to have someone in their life who cares about them like that.
Yeah. So besides writing your book, I believe you are been finding platforms to speak on and speak at, like schools and stuff, to talk to people about the bullying and stuff. So as a speaker, what is the most common question or concern you hear from young people about mental health, and how do you address it?
I think the biggest thing that I have heard from just, kids in general has been, why have you been bullied and you're not mean? Because I remember I got that one a couple of times and I was like, interesting question, but go on. Mm-hmm. But the answer to that is because you don't fight fire with fire. And I think that if people are going to treat you horribly, let them. That's their problem. I think discovering the let them theory is so important too. People are going to do what they're going to do. Let them. It's just, you can't control it. So don't try. But I just think the biggest thing is like, if someone's mean to you, don't be mean to them back. I've told that to multiple kids, and hopefully they took something with that. But I just think that's the thing, is really kind of like understanding that like being bullied doesn't mean you have to be a mean person back.
Right. Well, and if you think about it, I know we always say that fight fire with fire, and I don't know why or who came up with that, but
that's what I always say too.
It really is a horrible thing to say, because if you didn't enjoy being treated that way, then what makes you think anyone else is going to want to enjoy being treated that way? I think it'd be more like, treat others like you would want to be treated.
Yes.
Or take the higher road. There's so many other sayings I think that are probably better than fight fire with fire.
No, definitely. I mean, that's just one I use because it's just the first thing I came to mind.
No, but it's a good point. It's one that we throw around all the time, but it's like, I mean, on one hand, yes, you want to stand up for yourself, but there's different ways to do it. You don't have to do it by sinking down to their level and doing the same things and being just as nasty.
No, and I always say I don't want bad karma. So if you don't want bad karma, don't be mean to people, and be kind to everyone, because everyone is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. Everyone has something in their life they're fighting, even if you can't see it. So it's just, be nice to the person who maybe cut you in the grocery line store. Maybe they're dealing with, a terminal illness, or, you just never know. Like, let little things go too. That's what I always say too, is like, let it go. Because if something happens and someone does something, or like someone gets in front of you in the car, which I need to work on too, like in, road rage.
The road rage, yeah.
But like, let it go. You don't know their story. You don't know where they've been, where they're going. So I think it's just important to be kind to everyone. And my parents have taught me that since I was like literally like a child. Be nice, like treat others as you'd want to be treated. That's the saying they always used to tell me. And I always remembered it. Yeah, so they did right parenting me, I guess.
When growing up, one of my best friend's moms, when I was talking to her, she used to always talk about, how people are always big at, telling you you're number one and giving you the finger when you're driving. And she goes, and the honk, and she goes, I just smile and wave. It just pisses them off even more.
Yeah,
like, because they're doing it for a reaction, and so when they don't get their expected reaction, normally it'll stop. But yeah.
Same way with bullies too. I think that's the other thing too, is try your best not to react. And that's so hard, and it's so easier said than done, but not reacting, letting it go. Act unbothered, because there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, keep shining, being you, because they're jealous, or they are intimidated or something by you. So just like, be like, okay, whatever.
And many people project out what they don't actually like about themselves, but they attack others for it because it's really something that they within themselves that they don't like.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's why people have to be mean, because you'll never see a confident, successful person ever tearing down someone else who, like, you'll just never see that. You just don't. So it's just like, anyone who's bullying you is less successful than you. That's how I like to see it too.
That's a good way that's a good way to put it. Definitely a good way to put it.
Definitely.
So what legacy do you hope to leave through your work, both in your book and as a mental health advocate?
I think the biggest thing, more than like anything I've said at all, is just self-worth. Knowing that you have potential in life, you're going to do amazing things, you are going to get through whatever it is you're going through, and understanding that it's not always you. I think when we get rejected, or when we get, upset, or situations, we have this tendency to like shut down and be like, wait, I suck, or all this stuff. Like, I used to be like that. Mm-hmm. But now, like, if a guy rejects me, I'm like, okay, bye. See you on the flip side. Like, it's just, you have to learn how to like make light of things. And I think that that's the thing too, is, don't take life so seriously, because life is such a precious gift. We only have one life, and, spend it by being kind to people, by being gracious, by being able to pay it forward. I love to do that too. If, someone's in your Starbucks line and you pay for them, just one random thing like that could make their day. You have no idea. So I really just, love to give back in any way I can, and be kind and gracious, and understand that these kids have so much more in their lives than what they're going through right now. There's so much more for them. There's so much more for them. And it's just about fighting, getting through it, because the other side is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I really, really, really want these kids to know they are going to get there.
Yeah. And I know you said before you're not, a therapist or anything necessarily, but do you ever connect with some of these people or work with them, or do you just kind of help guide them to resources that can help them?
I usually just guide them to resources since I am not a licensed clinician. But I will just do my best to be like, here, like, I'm not a therapist, but try to reach a therapist, try to go to this website, all of that, because I also think it's important too that, if you're getting help, you're getting it from like the right people. And so I just like to be like, here, I'll direct you to it. But that's my whole thing is more about being like the advocate to getting help.
Right. So so definitely there's the QR code again in the corner for her website, which you can, they can buy your book from there, right, as well, yep. Unbreakable, and you can access resources. We got a couple minutes left. What is the one thing you want to leave the audience with today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here today, but I really will say just keep going. Don't let these hard times make you think that there is not a other side to that. I always say there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just got to keep going. You got to keep pushing. But really, if you need help and you're listening to this and you're like, I really do need help, or I feel like I need to talk to my kid more or whatever, really be open to that. And really try to lean into that, because you'd be surprised by how getting help can turn your life around. But more than that, I think it's just, I want people to understand that they are worth it. They are so beautiful. Everyone is beautiful. People are so critical on themselves. And we have to understand that we all are beautiful. We all have great things to offer. And if someone doesn't see your worth, be like, all right.
Next.
Nice. Bye. On to the next.
Yep. Next.
But yeah, like that goes with friendships, relationships, anything. If people don't see your worth, be like, all right, didn't want you in my life anyway. Close the door on the way out. That's the whole kind of way you have to, think about it and frame life. So I really hope that people know that, and also understand that they are unbreakable. They can get through anything. If you need help, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Carolyn, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing your journey.
Thank you.
That couldn't have been easy, and I'm sure it wasn't easy writing that book, but you have been through a lot, and I appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to share this and to be an advocate for mental health. So thank you.
Thank you.
And everyone, if you relate to anything that Carolyn has said to you, reach out to her on her website. There's the QR code. And like she said, just know that you're not alone and that there is help out there for you. And we will see you next week. Have a great time. Have a great week.